Hello everyone, you're welcome to today's physics class, and today we'll be talking about temperature measurements. Yes, today we'll be talking about temperature measurements, and at the end of the class, the aim is for you to have the capacity to carry out calculations on temperature conversions and also know how to convert from one temperature scale to another temperature scale. So now let's start. What exactly is temperature? How do we define temperature? Now, temperature is said to be the measure of hotness or coldness, the degree of hotness or coldness of a particular body. That is what we call temperature. Now, how do we measure temperature? Now, it is measured with an instrument called a thermometer. Now, a thermometer is the instrument we use to measure the temperature. Now, after that, what must every thermometer have to to have the capacity to carry out measurements? Now, every thermometer should have what we call a scale, and there are different scales. There are different scales to carry out measurements using a thermometer, and the first one is what we call the Kelvin scale. We have the Kelvin scale, we have the Celsius scale, and we have the Fahrenheit scale. There are other calibrations and there are other different kinds of skills we have, but I'm going to be talking precisely about this thing, and we'll also talk about other skills further as we keep moving on. Now, let's first of all talk about these different skills. Now, for every skill, it should have what we call the upper fixed point and the lower fixed point. The upper fixed point and the lower fixed point. Now, what's the upper fixed point? The upper fixed point is that scale, that point in the scale where water attains its boiling point. So we call it the steam point. It can also otherwise be called the steam point or the upper fixed point. And what is the lower fixed point? The lower fixed point is that particular point in the scale where the water attains the freezing point. So when it comes to the Celsius scale, for the Celsius scale, the upper fixed point is actually 100 degrees Celsius, and the lower fixed point is 0 degrees Celsius. When it comes to the Fahrenheit scale, the Fahrenheit scale has the upper fixed point to be 212 Fahrenheit, and the lower fixed point is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And when it comes to the Kelvin scale is actually 373 Kelvin for the upper fixed point and 273 Kelvin for the lower fixed point. So the question is, how do we carry out conversions from one scale to another? Let's say we have something as maybe 20 degrees Celsius. Now, if you have 20 degrees Celsius, what is the equivalent in Fahrenheit? Bearing in mind that the upper fixed point and the lower fixed point are not of the same value. So how do we carry out the conversion? Now, to carry out this conversion, this is how you do it. The required temperature, you carry out a subtraction between the required one minus the lower fixed point over what we now call the scale interval. Now, what is the scale interval? The scale interval is actually the difference between the upper fixed point and the lower fixed point. I repeat, the scale interval is the difference between the upper fixed point and the lower fixed point. Now, if you are going to carry out a conversion, how do you carry out your conversion? This is how you do it. You do something like equating what you're looking for. You represent it in Celsius, C, this is the unknown, minus the lower fixed point of Celsius, which is 0, over the scale interval. Now, the scale interval for the Celsius scale is actually 100 minus 0 degrees Celsius. Now, this is the scale interval here. Now, if you want to find the equivalent in Fahrenheit, what do you have? You have F minus 32 over 212 minus 32. Now, this is the scaling interval because this is the upper fixed point and this is the lower fixed point. Now, when it comes to this point here, you now have, for Kelvin scale, you have K minus 273, that is the one you are to convert it to, over 373 minus 273. So if we should carry out this subtraction, what you'll be having is 100 minus 0 will give you 100. 212 minus 32 would give you 180. And 373 minus 273 would actually give you 100. So, if I am to carry out my conversions, this is how you carry out your conversion now. Regardless of it being any of this, if it happens to be a thermometer that is not even in Fahrenheit scale or Kelvin scale or a Celsius scale, you can still carry out your conversions. And as far as the upper fixed point and lower fixed point is given, if you're told to convert to any other form, just get the required temperature, subtracting it from the lower fixed point over the scale interval. Now, let's do some examples so it makes more sense to you. So, imagine you are to carry out a conversion from 50 Fahrenheit to Celsius. If you are told to carry out the conversion from 50 Fahrenheit to Celsius, how do you carry out that conversion? Now, you carry out the conversion like this. First of all, you write your equation, F minus 32 over 180 equals to C minus 0 degrees Celsius over 100. Now, this is the time we have to impute our 50 because we want to find the equivalent here. Now, our F will be represented with 50. So it's going to be 50 minus 32 over 180 is equals to C. Remember, we are trying to get it in C. So it's going to be C minus 0 degrees over 100, which is our scaling interval. Now, you know that C minus 0 degrees is still C. So we can represent it as C without writing C minus 0. Now, when you proceed further, this is actually going to give you 18 over 180 equals to C. Remember, I said we are going to work with C since it's still going to give you C. So C over 100 degrees. Then the next thing we are going to do here is cross multiply. And when you cross multiply, you would have 18 times 100 equals to 180C. And this would actually give you 1800 equals to 180C. Then, if you divide both sides by 180, divide this side by 180, at the end of the day, this will give you 10. And that means that our Celsius is actually 10. So, by reason of this, our calculation tells us that 50 Fahrenheit is equivalent to 10 degrees Celsius. This is how you carry out your conversion. Very easy. Now, this is from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Now, what if I wanted to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit? Now, let's try. Let's give it a try. Now, imagine I wanted to convert from, let's say, 50 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. Let's say I wanted to convert from 50 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. So what do? So let's say we have 50 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. So what do? I still use the same method. I would say this time around it would be C minus 0 degrees Celsius over 100 equals to F minus 32 over 180. Now, my C in this case is going to be 50 because that is what I am to convert with. So it's going to be 50 minus 0 over 100 equals to F, which is my unknown, minus 32 over 180. Now, what's the next thing we're going to do? We are going to, when you carry out subtraction, it's still going to be 50 over 100. So this is 50 over 100 equals to F minus 32 over 180. Okay. Now, when you proceed further, now this is actually going to give you because you're going to cross multiply now. Now, when you cross multiply, this is actually going to give you 50 times 180 equals to 100. Now, remember it is multiplying the whole of this, so it's going to be in brackets. So it's 100 into f minus 32. Now, it is time to carry out our calculation on 50 times 180. So if you do our quick math, 180 times 50, so this is going to be 0, 0, 0, 5 times 0, 0, 5 times 8, 40, okay, 0, so 4, 5 times 1, 5, plus 4, 9. So that's going to give you 9,000. So that's actually going to give you 9,000. So this is actually 9,000 equals to 100f minus 3,200. Now, what's the next thing? We collect our like terms. And when we collect like terms, this is going to give you 9,000. This coming over here would be plus 3,200 equals to 100f. And when you carry out this calculation, this is going to give you 12,200 equals to 100f. So what's the next thing? I'm going to find our f. So it's going to give you divided by 100, divided by 100, and your f is equivalent to, now this goes like this, and this is going to give you 122. So that means if I was to convert 50 Celsius to Fahrenheit, I can have it that my 50 Fahrenheit, 50 Celsius is equivalent to 122 Fahrenheit. That's actually how to go about it. Now, what if it happens to be a kind of thermometer that you're given the upper fixed point and lower fixed point, and it is not a Fahrenheit scale or a Celsius scale or a Kelvin scale, whatever. So how do you carry out your conversion? So let's say it happens to be a millimeter scale. It can be a millimeter scale, it can be a resistance scale, it can be anything at all, and you're told to carry out your conversion. You're just hearing of the scale, or you're just told the calibrations of the scale, or you're to carry out an equivalence to a Celsius scale or to a Fahrenheit scale. How do you carry out the conversion? So let's start. Now, assuming maybe it was a millimeter scale and you're told that the upper fixed point of this particular scale now is maybe 180 millimeter, and this particular one, the lower fixed point happens to be 30 millimeter, and you're told to find the equivalent of, let's call it equivalent of 120 millimeter, the equivalent in a Celsius scale. So this is 100, this is 0, and now that means this is going to be X, or let's call it C. Let's call it C. So how are you going to carry out your conversion? Now your conversion would be the same way we have been talking about it. In this particular case, it's going to be this subtracted from this over this minus this, and this minus this over this minus this. Now, for it to make sense to you, let's try. Since you are dealing with 180, let us give an equation here. So we'll be having 120 minus 30 over the interval scale now, which is going to be 180 minus 30 equal to, come over here now, we are looking, this is the one we're looking for, so it's going to be C minus 0 degrees over the interval scale, which is 100. Now, if you look at this, 120 minus 30 is going to give you 90 over 180 minus 30 is going to give you 150 equals to C minus 0 degrees over 100. Now, what do? We can cross multiply. Remember, this can also be written as C because 0 degrees means nothing. So you can still leave it as C. So what do we do next? We cross multiply, and you'll be having 90 times 100 is equals to 150C. 150C, because 150, you would have said you're multiplying the entirety, but 150 times 0 degrees is still going to give you 0. So we just leave it at 150C. Now, what's the next thing? You have this to be 9,000 equals to 150C. Divide both sides by 150 to make it stand on its own. Divide this side by 150, and when it cancels out, what are you going to have here? You are going to be having 15 here. So you're going to be having 60. This is going to give us 60. So 60 degrees is equivalent of 120 millimeter as regards this question. So this is how conversion is actually carried out. This is how conversion is actually carried out. So that's the end of the class. Now I would like you to carry out an activity on your own, and I will need you to give me the answers in the comment section. Now this is the question. Now this is, let's say we have a resistance thermometer, and it has the unit in ohms, and it has the upper fixed point at 90 and the lower fixed point at 15 ohms, and we want to find the equivalent of 45 ohms in a Celsius scale. So how do we carry out the conversion? So I will need you to give me the equivalent in the Celsius scale. So I will be waiting for your answers in the comment section, and I'll be hoping that you get it right. So this is where we call it quits for the end of today's class. I hope one way or the other you have been educated and been enlightened, and you can carry out temperature conversions. And if there is any other topic in physics, chemistry, biology you want me to actually talk about, please indicate in the comment section, and I will be ever willing to carry out a tutorial on that. So I hope that you've enjoyed yourself. So please do like and subscribe to support the channel. It's still a growing channel, and I promise to still give you good videos to enlighten you educationally and in your academics. Thank you very much, and I remain your tutor, Miracle.